The film begins with a cabin in the woods, where we see a young boy escaping after breaking a window. The boy runs while someone who looks like a witch comes out of the house, picks up the gun the boy had left behind, and licks a bloody piece of glass. Terrified, the boy stumbles through the forest and hides an envelope in his bag while searching for his gun, which is now lost. The witch's laughter breaks the silence, and a blinding light shines on him, filling the boy with fear. That same night, a police officer finds the boy and recognizes him as Ronnie Harlow. However, the boy is in a trance, staring blankly without saying a word. We then learn that the film takes place in 1997 on a small island called Martha's Vineyard. We are introduced to a young boy named Noah who lives with his mother Abby and his little sister. Their family owns a beautiful house by the beach, and during the summer they rent out rooms to visitors. That morning they meet a new guest named Mrs. Halvorson, who strangely wears black from head to toe. Later, Noah meets the editor of a newspaper named Edgar and brings him a story about a suspicious man who constantly watches a local woman. But Edgar refuses to publish it and insists that this is the safest place in the country, a place where people come in the summer to relax, not to be afraid. Edgar admires Noah's determination to continue his father's legacy, but advises him to write something lighter. After that, Noah wins a baseball game and heads home with his close friends Eugene, Sammy, and Ben. On their way, they pass the house of a mysterious man named Gene Carter's. It turns out that disturbing rumors have surrounded him since 1965, when his wife and children disappeared without a trace. Noah believes their bodies are still buried on Gene's property and wants to secretly enter the land to investigate, hoping to create an exciting story for the newspaper. His friends are annoyed by the idea because Noah often gets them into trouble, but they eventually agree to go along with him. The kids sneak inside and see Gene digging in the ground, which increases Noah's suspicion. When the old man walks away, the boys head to a shed where Noah notices an old box. But before he can see what is inside, Gene returns and grabs the box. Suddenly, Noah remembers that he left his backpack inside the house, but his friends tell him to forget it before they all run away. Later that same night, Ben arrives at the beach for a date and meets a young girl named Allie, while a mysterious figure dressed in black watches them from a distance. The two begin swimming in the water, when suddenly an old woman warns them that being in the sea at this time of night is dangerous for children. The woman approaches and dives into the water, then drags Allie under the surface. Ben immediately rushes to save her, but the woman grabs him and pulls him deeper down. Soon a blinding light shines from the water, allowing Allie to escape the terrifying scene. The next day, when Noah leaves his house, he finds his backpack outside, and inside it, he discovers a book that belongs to Gene. Noah goes to visit Ben, but he sees his mother talking with a police officer about what happened the previous night. The officer assures her that Ben is physically fine and explains that after almost drowning, he is suffering from post-traumatic stress. This worries Noah, so he goes to see his friend. Shockingly, Ben shows no reaction at all. He just stares blankly, exactly like the boy we saw at the beginning of the film. Later, Noah finds Allie shaken and asks her what really happened the night before. The girl explains everything about the old woman who grabbed her and the blinding flash of light. Allie suspects that the woman was a witch, and Noah insists that they must tell the police. But Allie says neither the authorities nor her parents believe her story. Still worried, Noah later goes to the beach where he finds a piece of black cloth and sees Mrs. Halvorson standing in the distance. After that, he goes to Gene's house and thanks the old man for returning his backpack. He also apologizes for trespassing and claims that he and his friends had simply gotten lost. However, it is obvious that Gene does not believe him. Noah learns that Gene is a retired police officer and asks him for help investigating the strange incident from the night before. He explains that a girl told him about an old witch who dragged her friend into the water. But Gene considers the story nonsense and shuts the door in his face. When Noah returns home, Abby gives him a tray of food and asks him to quietly leave it outside Mrs. Halvorson's room without disturbing her. Noah goes upstairs where he hears Mrs. Halvorson whispering something inside her room. He slides a knife under the door to take a look, but suddenly realizes that the woman is staring directly back at him, which scares him and makes him run away. Meanwhile, Gene sits alone in his house watching old videos of his son, which makes him sad. Later, he turns on the television and sees a news report about Ben nearly drowning, which makes him start thinking more seriously about the incident. The next day during a baseball game, Noah seems distracted and even argues with the referee. At that moment, Gene arrives at the game and gives Noah some advice on how to play better. He also says that he will talk to his friend about the situation, which gives Noah some hope. After the game, Noah takes Gene to see Ben, who is still in a trance-like state. When Gene asks him about what happened at the beach, Ben finally answers in a flat voice that he was simply pulled away by the current. He mentions seeing a bright light, but says nothing about an old woman, which makes Gene believe the story is unimportant. Noah becomes upset and claims that Ben is lying, but Gene argues that if someone had dragged him underwater, there would have been bruises or injuries. That same night, several teenagers are seen having fun near the beach, and one of the boys notices an attractive girl who seems interested in him. The girl seduces him and leads him toward the forest. But the boy hesitates because the place is a restricted area that was once a bombing field during World War II. However, the girl, who is actually a witch, ignores his warnings and takes him there anyway. Soon the boy's terrified screams echo through the trees, followed by a massive explosion. The next day, Noah watches the news about the explosion from the previous night. Fortunately, the boy, whose name is Scott, only suffered minor injuries, but the disturbing part is that he is now changed and has the same empty stare as Ben. Because of this, Gene takes Noah to the forest to investigate what happened that night. Gene examines the footprints, while Noah follows behind him. They reach the place where the explosion occurred, and Noah freezes in shock when he finds a small black cloth like the one he had discovered on the beach, along with a broom. Later, Noah meets Eugene and Sammy and shows them the items, proving that a real witch exists on the island. After doing some research, he discovers that witches must feed on children to stay alive. Otherwise, they grow weak and may even die. Witches can change their appearance to blend in with ordinary people, and they can also use spells to control the minds of others. After that, Noah introduces Gene to his friends, who are frightened at first. But Gene explains that he is not a bad person and that he is a retired investigator. They begin discussing the witch who made a mistake this time by causing an explosion. They consider different theories about how witches can be killed, including shooting them with silver bullets. The kids are confused about why the witch does not eat the children but instead turns them into brain-dead zombies and sends them home. Gene suggests that maybe she used to kidnap children before, but people slowly began to notice, so now she has to act more carefully. Gene tells the kids to watch for anyone with burn marks because the witch must have been injured during the explosion. That night, Noah notices Mrs. Halvorson leaving the house. He secretly enters her room and begins searching for suspicious items. To his shock, he finds a list filled with the names and birth dates of many children, including his friends. When he also sees several drawings of his little sister, he trembles with fear. The next day, Noah shares his suspicion with his friends and explains that everything began when Mrs. Halvorson arrived in town. The kids decide to follow her with a camera so they can catch her committing a crime. Soon they see her entering a children's theater and assume she plans to kidnap several kids at once. When Noah enters, he sees Mrs. Halvorson reaching out to touch a child, so he quickly pushes her and both of them fall onto the stage in front of the audience. Eugene rushes forward and throws holy water on her, but it has no effect. Noah then loudly tells everyone that the woman is a witch. However, Mrs. Halvorson insists that she is a children's writer who came to read her book. Noah questions her about the drawings of children, and she claims they are simply references for her illustrations. Noah also mentions the strange chants she was saying in an unknown language, but the woman angrily replies that she was praying in Latin. After this embarrassing incident, the angry woman decides to leave the guest house despite Abby's pleas for forgiveness. Mrs. Halvorson also asks for the remaining money she had paid for the entire summer. As soon as she leaves, Noah apologizes to his mother, but Abby angrily tells him to get out of her sight. That evening, Noah goes to Gene's house and tells him everything that happened. The old man warns that a false accusation can destroy a person's life forever. Noah then talks about his father, who was a journalist and traveled around the world to prepare reports. However, during his last assignment, he had an accident and lost his life. After hearing this, Gene also speaks about his own son, who would now be 40 years old. When the boy was only 5 years old, he was kidnapped right in front of Gene's eyes by a man on a motorcycle. Gene tried to chase him but crashed into a tree, and the child was never found again. Eventually, his wife left him, and for the past 30 years, he's been trying to find his son. Gene then shows Noah the results of his investigation, and explains that a friend of his in the department gave him a list of children who had disappeared from other towns. The next day, Gene and Noah meet with the police chief and Edgar. They explain that a hunter may be in the town, but Edgar does not want to scare anyone, and the police chief says that every year children nearly drown in the sea or have accidents in the forest. Gene tries to explain the strange behavior the children have been showing and even presents evidence, such as the piece of black cloth. When the adults still refuse to believe them, Noah speaks up and says that a witch is behind everything, but the adults laugh at him. Afterward, Noah meets his friends, but they also do not want to spend time with him because their parents believe Noah is a bad influence on them. This leaves the boy disappointed, and he goes to the beach where he throws his research notebook into the water. The next day after a baseball game, Noah is walking home when he sees Eugene's bicycle and backpack abandoned in the forest. Noah begins searching for his friend and soon finds Eugene, looking terrified. The boy says that someone followed him there and points into the distance. Noah becomes frightened when he sees a figure dressed in black who warns them to stay out of things that do not concern them. The two children quickly run out of the forest and reach their bicycles. Before leaving, Eugene angrily tells Noah to stay away from him. Feeling hopeless, Noah checks his shoes and notices red seaweed stuck to them. Later, as Noah walks toward home in the darkness, a car suddenly appears out of nowhere and begins chasing him. Noah runs as fast as he can and reaches Gene's house. He explains that a car followed him all the way there, but when Gene looks outside, no car is in sight. Gene then tells him about a town in New Hampshire where most of the missing children had disappeared before. He also tells him about Ronnie Harlow, the first child who was found again after going missing, and he had the same empty stare. Gene decides that the next day they will travel to New Hampshire to meet Ronnie. The following day during their meeting, Gene tries to start a conversation with Ronnie, but the boy remains completely indifferent. Gene searches the house and finds a book about witches inside Ronnie's bag. He also discovers an envelope containing several photographs of baseball teams along with a key. Using the key, Gene opens a small box he had found in the closet, and inside, he discovers the witch's map, a collection of newspaper clippings and silver bullets. On the way back home, Gene suddenly stops his car and carefully studies the witch's map and the photographs he had found. He realizes that the pictures show baseball teams from different towns and different years, but the strange thing is that they all have one thing in common: a single player who appears in every photo. Elsewhere, Noah is in the middle of a baseball game when he suddenly notices red seaweed stuck to the referee's shoes. Even worse, he sees a burn mark on the referee's hand and realizes that the witch they have been searching for is standing right in front of him. After the game, he meets Eugene and Sammy and tells them that the witch is none other than the referee. Sammy thinks it sounds ridiculous, but Eugene, who had previously encountered the witch, believes Noah. He says he knows the referee's address, and the three decide to go there to confront him. Soon the kids arrive at the referee's house armed with a camera and a baseball bat. While secretly recording everything, they sneak inside and are shocked to discover several fake ID cards belonging to the referee. Meanwhile, Eugene and Sammy find several children's shoes, and soon the three kids suddenly wake up to find their hands and mouths tied. The referee approaches them holding two knives and says that he has been fasting for months and his cravings have become unbearable. He blames them for ruining his retirement plan and angrily says how difficult it is to be a witch, forced to hunt and eat children while moving from place to place 3 or 4 times a year. But in Sebastian Harbor, there is finally an endless supply of children who come every summer. He adds that draining the youth of one child is not enough to satisfy his cravings, and now he plans to eat all 3 of them. The referee decides to eat Noah first, and just as he reveals his true form, he grabs him and begins to kill him while Noah throws his lighter toward his friends. The witch drags Noah to the kitchen to finish him off while Sammy and Eugene use the lighter to free themselves. After Sammy accidentally sets a curtain on fire, they hit the witch with a baseball bat. Eugene then runs to help Noah, but as the witch chases him, Jean suddenly appears and shoots the witch, though it has no effect, and she quickly stands up again. Jean then loads the gun with silver bullets, and when he shoots the witch again, it finally works. However, the witch heals quickly, so Jean urges the kids to leave and says he will handle the situation. The house is almost completely on fire, but Noah refuses to leave and goes to the basement to help Jean. Suddenly, the witch throws Jean out from a dark corner and Noah panics. He sees a gun on the floor and rushes to grab it, but the witch knocks it out of his reach. She then lifts him up and begins sucking out his soul, but Jean shoots the witch again, forcing her to release Noah. The old man fires a burst of bullets, each one damaging the witch until all the trapped souls are finally released. In the end, the evil witch dies, and the freed souls return to the bodies of the children where they belong. Some time later, Noah is seen dedicating his heart to writing a story about Jean in hopes of clearing the bad rumors in the town. Noah shows the story to Edgar, who is impressed and finally agrees to publish it. In the next scene, Noah visits Jean, who thanks him for the article, and they talk about how some of the children have started returning to normal. Noah still worries about Ben, who has not changed yet, but the old man asks him to be patient. A few days later, another baseball game takes place, and Ben arrives to play, still in a catatonic state. Moments later, something amazing happens as his soul finally returns to his body. Ben begins playing with renewed energy and eventually wins the game. His friends are happy to see him back and cheer for him excitedly. Elsewhere, Jean arrives to visit his ex-wife, and that is where the movie comes to an end.